Welcome to the Our State Book Club podcast. I'm your host, New York Times bestselling author and North Carolina native Wiley Cash. In today's episode, we spend the holidays in Asheville with New York Times bestselling author Sarah Addison Allen to discuss her long path to overnight success. We'll also discuss some of her favorite things about Asheville at Christmas time. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We are here in the English department, actually in my office at UNC Asheville. We both received our undergraduate degrees here. I teach here now. And after graduating college, you began writing in earnest. And you were always, even if you weren't getting paid to do it, you were a working writer. You were a very blue-collar writer, turning out the pages. What were those years of your writing career like leading up to Garden Spells?
I called myself a writer, therefore I was one.
Oh.
So even though I wasn't published, even though I was writing all the time, being published was the goal, but I was going to be a writer no matter what. If I never published a thing, I was always going to be a writer. It was so much a part of who I was and who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the truth of most writers.
Yes.
We write because there's something deep in us that requires it. And so I was trying very hard to get to the point where I could support myself and not, live with my mom. And it took a good long time. And I fought a lot of dark days because I kept submitting. And there becomes a point where you get so much rejection that you think, is this worth it? Is this pain worth it? But there was nothing else that I was good at, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was better at writing than I was better at anything else. So I had one book published about 6 years in, and it was a Harlequin romance. And I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to be a romance writer. And they didn't want another book after that. And that was probably the darkest blue period of trying to get published. That period between Harlequin not wanting another book and, going back to school and thinking, got to give this, got to get some marketable skills. So I thought, okay, I'll be a medical transcriptionist. And I hated going back to school, and I thought I'm going to give it one more go. Yeah. And that's when I wrote Garden Spells. And what I did was I sort of let go of the idea of following the market, which is what I was doing. I was looking at what was selling, and I thought, well, maybe I can try to write that. But I wasn't following a really true voice. So what Garden Spells was it's who I am as a reader.
Sure.
It was a result of, I love reading Southern fiction and romance and foodie lit, and even some
suspense too.
Some suspense and some magical realism. And that's how I found my true voice, by just, not following the market and
writing the book you wanted to read.
Yes. And not the book I thought would sell.
Sure. A lot of people think, like, given my experience in the publishing world, a lot of people kind of, when they come to me, they think, if I can just get a book, then the gates open and you can always do this. And I'm 4 books in, about to have a 5th book come out. I'm still not convinced I can always do this. Like, there are no guarantees in this industry. So I totally hear what you're saying. You had this book come out with Harlequin romance, and like, you would think, like, here are the keys, keep cranking them out. And I can't imagine. That's almost more devastating than never having a book in some ways.
It's true. It was, because I had always been a romance reader, and Harlequin, this was so funny when I tell people about this. Harlequin at the time, at the back of their books, back of their paperback books, they had, "Are you a writer? Send us your manuscript." And so I thought, oh, that was sort of an easy in. And I thought, well, they're desperate for writers then. Hey, but and it was devastating at the time that they didn't want a second book. They the Harlequin has different lines, and I submitted for one line, but it was accepted for another line, which was their romantic comedy line. And I swear, I didn't know it was a funny book. I had no clue. I thought, wow, okay, but anything to get
red
published.
flag number
Yes,
one.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then that line folded shortly after the book was published. So, yeah, like I said, it was probably the darkest blue time of my writing career.
Sure.
I did give up and went back to school, and I hated it. And I thought, give it one more go.
Gosh, that's amazing. It's not unlike when I got my first agent. She tried to sell my debut novel for a year, and then ended up dropping me.
Gosh.
And I remember thinking, like, should I go to law school? What should I do? I'm not cut out to do anything. What are the other skills I can develop? And so it's so refreshing to hear these stories are not dissimilar, not unlike the stories that other folks are going to have, who watch this.
It's true.
When I think about your work, from Garden Spells, which came out in 2007, I think, to Other Birds, which was 22?
22, yeah.
22. You get a lot of mileage in writing about family and found family. What about those themes attracts you?
Oh, wow. I like the idea of trying to find where you belong, because it's not something I have struggled with personally. I was born and raised in Asheville. I have very deep roots here. I say, I was born without wings to travel, but I was born with very deep roots, to make up for that. I've always belonged here. I've always had family. It's never been something I personally felt in the context that my characters feel it.
Sure.
But I think it taps into a universal belief that we all have, that are we not like other people, or other people seem to have it easier. They seem to find their tribe easier. They seem to belong easier. But life seems to be easier and better for other people. It's ripe for exploration in fiction. But I think it's, I don't know, it just makes for a good story, number one. But number two, I think it's something we've all pondered.
Yeah. The tensions between family members are delicious when they're not your family. It's delicious to read about. Like, we want to hear about the drama in other families.
Yeah.
We don't want it in our family, but if the neighbors are arguing, we're like, what's going on over there? But then also, especially in Other Birds, which I don't want to talk too much about because we're going to spend the next episode about it, the family kind of becomes an us against them, insider, outsider. And, when people are looking for what they're going to write about, it's like, it's all around you. You don't need to leave home. You don't need to go have another life. The story's not in New York or in LA. It's like in your neighborhood, It's true. And especially with mystery writers, you think, with people asking, is this based on real life? Is this character you? And it's like, no, I'm not a serial killer. But I think the idea that writing novels, they're sort of smoky mirrors of the author. And I think the emotion is real, even if the situation isn't. Yeah, absolutely. We will be right back with Sarah Addison Allen after this break.
Elon University is proud to support the Our State Book Club. In the same way great authors bring North Carolina stories to life, Elon is committed to fostering knowledge, creativity, and lifelong learning across our state. Discover how Elon University shapes thoughtful leaders at www.elon.edu.
We are back with Sarah Addison Allen. So Sarah, I've met your father a couple of times, and he has a long literary history of his own as a writer. What was it like growing up in a household where the vocation of writing was taken so seriously?
Dad was, he started out his career as a copy editor at the Asheville Citizen-Times, and he became a journalist and an award-winning columnist. He has always had a very creative soul. He's also a musician. The funny thing about my deciding after I graduated from college to, sort of take time off. And
Were you interested in writing in college, or did you know? What is it? Sorry to interrupt, but were you here kind of absorbing the things you were reading? Like, how could I use this? How did I?
well, I was actually trying to write for Harlequin while I was the lit major. So I was in the back of my mind, I was thinking, yeah, I'd really kind of like to be a writer. I chose literature just because I needed to graduate.
Sure.
And I like to read. So it wasn't really a track I was on. But when I graduated, it was sort of, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So let's do this in earnest. Let's just not play around. And he was surprisingly resistant to the idea. My dad was. And I've come to realize it's because my dad was a 9-to-5 writer.
Sure.
He worked and he got a paycheck. I mean, he wasn't freelance. He had a family to support, and he didn't quite understand what I was doing or the goal that was there, which is fair because I didn't. I was just sort of.
And you're his child, and he was like, what is she going to do for money? You know?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I understand it came from a place of love, but he was not always supportive in the way that my mom was supportive, but moms are different. I get that. I've often said that when Garden Spell sold, when I started making a living from writing, one of the best things about that was he stopped asking me when I was going to get a real job.
Yeah.
So, he was getting a lot of attention when I was in junior high from his writing. And so my English teachers knew of him because, that's when newspapers were king.
Sure, absolutely. Especially columnists.
Yeah. And so they knew who he was, and they knew I was his daughter. And so I will always believe that they tried to see something of him in me. And so if I turned in a paper and I wrote something good or something beautiful or a turn of phrase, they always said, hey, that's good. And I wonder if always wonder if there was that connection. And it was through those teachers that encouraged me because, Dad was never, pursued a career in writing to me. Here, you should do that, write more poetry, Sarah. But I think I attribute that to my teachers, junior high and high school. But I think that ultimately goes back to Dad.
Absolutely. And is he supportive now? Because I've only met him at your literary events where you are in front of a couple of hundred people and Dad's on the front row.
Yes, he is very supportive now. He's very proud, and it was not something he imagined either. So
and he released a book of his own, not long ago?
It was a compilation of his award-winning columns.
Absolutely. So he's following in your footsteps.
Take that. I'm going to use that.
Take that, Dad. One question that I want to know, you've written about so many families at different phases of their life and people coming home or trying to find home in other birds. I mentioned found family at the top of our time together. How do you know when you're ready to sink into a story, to stay with it over the time it takes to write a book? Because you said Our Other Birds was 7 years. I mean, you had a lot going on during that time, but I have to really love characters and have a lot of questions to stick with the book for a long time. Like, what do you need to stay with it?
I think I need to finish from beginning to end, whether I hate it or not. Writing is a terribly uncomfortable process for me, and I avoid it. I procrastinate. My poor amygdala, it tells me I'm being chased by a bear, and it's just writing. It's just sitting down and writing, and it's a very, very difficult process for me. So just sitting down and getting it beginning to end without trying to edit along the way. If I do that, I will never finish it. If I turn it in pieces and get too much feedback, then I will never finish it. I shine in the revision process, and even if that revision process means taking a 75,000 word novel and cutting it down to 20, at least I have explored who the characters are. At least I know what the setting is, and then I can start building. And it's a long process. I tried to be a book a year writer, and that's very difficult for me.
Sure. Yeah. It's so interesting. I can see that you, and in the next episode, I'm going to ask about your character development, because when your characters appear on the page, I know them immediately. They're immediate. There's nothing opaque about them. and that, I don't know if that's a end of revision process where they arrive fully formed after the revision. So we are here in Asheville in the Christmas holiday. And I want to ask you, I was going to ask you something else about magical realism and fantasy books, and maybe we can talk about that too. Where are some of your favorite places to shop for holiday gifts in Asheville?
Oh, wow. Let's see. The Southern Highland Handicraft Guild gift shop, the most beautiful handmade items.
Yeah.
And you can find from traditions that are deep, 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 generations deep in the mountains. So I didn't realize this until recently, but Stewart and I Jewelers, who they were an institution in Asheville. Everybody's grandmother, great-grandmother had a sterling silver dogwood pin that was made by Stewart and I. So that was a go-to gift for like publisher gifts and things like that.
Oh, that's
because
cool.
North Carolina state flower. Yeah. But they've closed, which made me sad. Downtown, of course. Please go downtown if you're here at the holidays.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and particularly after Helene, local businesses, Asheville is open. They shop local, come to Asheville.
Yeah.
And
of course, get your books from Malaprops.
Get your books from Malaprops, yes.
I imagine Malaprops has sold more of my books than any bookstore in the country. And I imagine that has to be true of yours as well, I would imagine.
Well, I don't know about you. Do you do your like pub days at Malaprops?
Almost always.
Yes, me too, yep.
Because it's always going to be a good turnout, and they always support me.
They are absolutely a treasure and a long-standing institution in Asheville. They are one of the oldest businesses in downtown.
They are. They are. Well, we have a little time left. What are some of your favorite books of fantasy or magical realism? Which is the vein that I think you would slot most easily into, perhaps?
Right. Yeah. I think, we talked about this before because we took the same class several years apart here at UNCA, and which was the first time I was ever exposed to magical realism. And those first books will always be my favorite because they're like first loves. Like,
sure.
I'm One of You Forever by Fred Chappell.
Sure. The late Fred Chappell.
Yes, yes. I know he influenced your work as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. I love that. I love that book so much.
And it took magical realism and putting to a southern setting, which I had never seen before. Water for Chocolate, magical realism put into into food, which having a mother who extended food as a love, that resonated with me. Practical Magic.
Sure.
Alice Hoffman.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's amazing. I love another book that I met in that class that Jeff Rackham taught, which was where I met I'm One of You Forever, was The Passion by Jeanette Winterson.
Yes. Oh,
that novel blew my mind apart. I could not believe how beautiful that book was.
It was literally the first book of magical realism I'd ever read. Can you imagine? Have never, you don't even know what this literary device is, and reading something so unique and so astounding. It was like cracking open a geode, and there are the sparkles, and you didn't expect it. Yes.
When my first book came out, I went to Winter Institute that was in New Orleans, and that's for people who might not know, who are listening or watching. Winter Institute is where all the indie bookstores get together, and they have their titles to watch or whatever. And I was there with my book. It didn't even have a cover yet. It was just a galley, like a white galley. It was so boring. And at the table next to me was Jeanette Winterson. And I got to meet her and tell her how much The Passion meant to me. And she was so kind and so charming. And it was a really wonderful experience. And this has been too, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode.
Thank you so much, Wiley.
Elon University believes in the power of stories to engage and inspire our community. That's why Elon is proud to sponsor the Our State Book Club, showcasing conversations with writers who reflect the heart of our state. Learn how Elon University is igniting discovery and dialogue in North Carolina at www.elon.edu.
From day one at Elon University, you're empowered. Engaged learning, meaningful mentorship, celebrated individuality. Transform your potential into purpose and become a leader the world needs at Elon University.
Work my fly coming back on me. It seems wonderful, the wandering mountain birds on a beach. Never moments ever wasted, turning away from your love. Honeybees, gardens of sweeter fruit never tasted. No turning to other things. Will you be, will you seem? Sweeter fruit never tasted. Don't turn your back on me. Mountains pushing into the sea. Mountains in